Also brought to you by the Boatyard in Fort Lauderdale. Eat local, but stay coastal at the Boatyard Restaurant. The Boatyard is located at 1555 Southeast 17th Street in Fort Lauderdale. That means you can come by boat or you can come by car. Enjoy the nautical atmosphere whether you sit inside in the cold AC or outside on the patio bar. The Boatyard has something for everyone. Monday through Friday, happy hour, where local favorite is bar bites and handcrafted cocktails. Open for lunch, dinner, and the popular Sunday brunch. And don't forget, Ladies' Night, every Thursday night from 7 to 10 p.m. where ladies drink free. Dock and dine at the famous Boatyard in Fort Lauderdale. I am sure you'll have a great experience.
Clear the airways. The Lunker Dog is on the air.
Are you ready? This is the Real Guy Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Captain Jeff, and I can't believe this, but this is going to be episode number 57. 57 episodes so far since March, and I hope you guys have enjoyed them. We're starting a new series tonight. This is going to be the first part of a multiple podcast series about the devastation of Hurricane Dorian and the relief efforts over in the Abacos. And as you listen to the podcast, there's going to be a second phase of Hurricane Dorian relief efforts that are going to be going on over in the northern Abacos. And if you would like to participate, reach out to us, Jeff at lunkerdog.com. And whether you just want to donate, a small amount of money, $5, $10 to the cause, or you'd like to participate in a much bigger fashion, let us know. And email me, Jeff at lunkerdog.com. Also, if you'd like the podcast, you like the new series, please give us a rating on iTunes. Rate us, give us a 5-star rating if you like the podcast. And hope you enjoy this first part of a multiple series. Tonight, it's Stephen Busaka and the Lunker Dog, and we're going to talk in depth about Hurricane Dorian and the relief efforts over in the Abacos. Hey guys, it's Captain Jeff. Welcome to the Real Guy Show. I got Stephen Busaka in the studio tonight with me. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing all right, bud. How you doing today?
Good. Just, doing a lot of trips for October, I got to tell you. Banging out the tarpon trips. The mullet run kind of sucks this year, but it's not like we're not catching tarpon right through it. It's just not the mullet run.
No, it's not.
So, but, it is what it is, so you just roll with it.
Yeah, man. I've been watching the news lately, trying to keep up with the whole Bahamas thing and, just kind of the relief efforts going down there. And I know that you started something. How's that been going for you?
Our Bahama relief effort?
Yeah.
Do you know exactly what we're doing?
No.
Well, since Hurricane Dorian, maybe everybody knows, people in the northern Abacos, especially, they just got crushed, And
it's terrible, man.
Yeah, dude. It happens. They're kind of used to it, but a Category 5, no one's used to a Category 5, and the amount of devastation is just friggin' retarded, and it's been really nice to see the amount of relief that, especially coming from the United States, but coming from all over the world, to help get, the Abacos back on their feet. But the relief effort that we're doing, it's about getting the families actually productive again. Like most of the relief that's going over there so far, some generators, a lot of generators and stuff to get some power back, a lot of food and water, and God knows they need it, and it's getting there. There were some logistic issues, but the overwhelming support, and of course, then you got the big dudes like Red Cross, they're bringing in the doctors, and making sure that the, health issues are taken care of and all that. And that's what kind of comes to everybody's mind when they're talking about, Bahama relief. And, my biggest concern about the Bahama relief at this point anyway, now that the people are getting the water and getting fed and, they have some sort of logistics where they're getting the supplies there, is how is the Bahamas going to rebuild itself? So we're taking the approach where we're reaching out to Bahamians Abaconians, not just Bahamians, and I'll explain that in a minute. We're reaching out to Abaconians that naturally can help rebuild Abacos. And what I mean by that is the family that we're sponsoring, the Lightborns, for instance. This guy, Darren, had a successful construction business and was in the process of building really nice stuff over in the Bakers Bay area in Guanaqui. And there was a lot of work coming from there because that was that's the type of work that the construction people often get there. Because these people come in and they spend huge amounts of money on these beautiful places for people to vacation. So there's a lot of work there. They don't get a whole lot of work, or at least it's different type of work with like Bahamian residential type construction. Because it's just not that kind of money moving in there. So the type of construction that's going to happen now after the storm is going to be for the people that actually live on the islands, not the people vacationing there, not the people necessarily making money there, but for the people that actually live there. And let's take the scenario where my friend Darren didn't get back up on his feet and didn't get his construction company rolling again. How would that look? All right, so storm's over. People aren't starving. There's no huge health epidemic, so people are surviving and there's no disease and it's stable. And now the insurance companies come back into the Abacos and they are getting ready to pay out claims on the insurance claims, all different kinds, whether it was commercial, for the resorts, for the marinas, for people that had mortgages. The insurance companies are going to start to look for companies to rebuild. Now, if the Abaconians are not set up to start rebuilding, for instance, this guy Darren and his construction company. Now, remember, Darren has no trucks left, no equipment left. He had over 20 people working for him. So it was a substantial business, especially for Abaconians, So then the insurance companies come in and they settle and they figure out who they're going to pay. And now they have checks ready to write. Who's going to do the work? They're going to be forced to bring in other companies to do the work that the Abaconian companies should be able to do. But because they were devastated by the storm, they can't. So it's going to be the natural progression, which isn't going to do a whole hell of a lot for the Bahamians or the Abaconians. Yeah, the places are going to start to get rebuilt. But if you're not paying Abaconians to rebuild, or the Abaconians don't have a process or can't get their hand in the process to rebuild, the insurance companies are going to be forced to give that money to somebody that can. Are you following me, Steve?
Yeah. I'm hearing you talk right now. You talk about the Bahamians, the Abaconians, like you're making all these different distinctions. And I've known you for a couple of years now, Jeff, and one thing I've noticed is you know a lot about the Bahamas. Like more than most people.
Well, yeah.
Here, you know what I mean? And, I was wondering if you could take this time to maybe kind of explain how that all came to be.
Well, I mean, I was, at a young age, my family bought a property over there. So as I, grew older and learned about life, a part of the life was from Treasure Key itself, right there on the mainland of Abaco. And, I think when I first started going over there, I was like 11 or 12 years old. And then my dad's best friend's family spent their time there also. So anytime that we, got a chance to spend spare time and to hang out, we did that in Treasure Key. So that's how I first got exposed, to the Bahamas, or to Abaco especially. After that, as I got older, because I knew about Abaco, and I fished there with my father and some of his friends, then some of the other guys that were into sport fishing, wanted me to kind of show them the ropes in the Abacos. And then as I grew older, I started running bigger boats, and a lot of my job description was to get through the Abacos or through all the Bahamas for that matter. And we fished from Cat Island, all the way to Walker's Key, all these different tournaments and stuff we did through there. So, growing up, it was always just part of what I thought my thought process was had to do with the Bahamas.
Dude, you probably have so many memories from there.
I do. I got a ton of memories, but right now, my focus is on the DL Construction. I want to get that company up and running. And I've been talking to Darren about the relief effort, and it's been more of a logistics problem. Like, the first thing we got to get to him is a pickup truck. You know what I mean? The poor guy, even if we put a container of stuff, saws and hammers and all sorts of construction equipment for him to start using, tools, he had 3 trucks basically get wiped out by the storm. So he couldn't go and pick up the equipment or the tools and stuff because he doesn't have a truck at this point. So step by step, we're going to get this family up and going. I'm going to get him a truck. And what I mean by I'm going to get him a truck is our first goal was to get him back in Cooperstown where he lives, back into his home where he can live. So that part of it's done. Now we're going to try to get him the assets so he can put his construction company back together. And first thing we're going to raise money for is getting him a pickup truck. Just for the pickup truck alone, he can already start helping his neighbors and his community out. Yeah. After we get him the pickup truck, then I'm going to raise money and send over a full container just for his construction company. And there's a list of tools that are going to be in that container that are going to be the basics essentials for him. And what this is going to do is going to enable him to get part of his construction crew working again. So as his money comes in from construction companies, he's a licensed contractor over there, and he'll be in position to run. So if we don't do that, the people are going to build, but they're just not going to be Abaconians.
Yeah.
Or if they are, they're going to pick up the slack way after the fact. So my whole thought process is if I can get Darren and DL Construction up and going. Now there's 20 dudes that work for him, so that's 20 families in Cooperstown or that part of the Abacos that now will have work.
Can feed their families.
Well, yeah, exactly. Or they can at least start rebuilding their families' properties and getting to a normal living condition. Because right now, and it's not like here in the United States where they get massive help to clean all this stuff up.
Oh, yeah. We got the whole freaking relief program.
Right. It's totally different there. I mean, their government is not what we would consider a real government. No. They don't have the means. They don't have the construction equipment. They don't have the plans and the procedures to get their people up and running. It's nothing like here. The only people that are going to get them up and running are themselves. And that's why I feel it's important to start with these Bahamian families and get them up and rolling and in a place where they can start building their community back. And if we start with companies and Abaconians like him, then he can turn around and help other Abaconians. And it's weird because, talking to Darren, he's, crazy nervous, and he feels funny about taking the money or the assets. He's worried about paying people back. He
sounds like a good guy.
Oh, he's a really good guy, and most of those people really are. And I'm telling Darren, I was like, dude, nobody expects to get paid back. What we expect is for you to help other Bahamians rebuild their families and their houses and their lives. And as long as everybody's main goal is that, we can start the snowball rolling early.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's where we are in our relief effort, and that's kind of where we're going with it. You know what I mean? And if I didn't have the experience in the Bahamas through all these years, I probably couldn't think this way. Because like most Americans, I would just assume certain things were happening in the Bahamas for them to make a comeback. You know what I mean?
You assume everything must be getting better.
Well, you assume that they, like we take for granted our government agencies and the power of them, as inefficient as they are. You know what I mean? And as much as we bitch and moan about paying our taxes and how inefficient the government is, at least there's a real structure. So when there is some sort of real devastation,
it's handled.
Right. It's handled, and it's handled in an expedient amount of time. Faster than any place else in the world, probably.
Yeah.
I'm not real familiar with everybody's government, but I am familiar with the Bahamian government. And the Bahamian government would have a hard time running a softball team. Never mind a full, relief.
Hurricane relief program.
Right. Yeah. And that is a big difference. And, right now I'm reaching out to a lot of dudes that are thinking like me, the next step in how to help the Bahamas. And I'm getting a real good amount of feedback. As a matter of fact, a lot of people in our network, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but some people in our network, through the Real Guy Network, they know that I'm sponsoring this one Bahamian family. And it's the guy, Sean Irons. We met him over in Tampa at LunkerCon, 2 or 3 LunkerCons ago. Okay. And really nice guy. And he was over in the Abacos. He was helping the stray dogs, getting those dogs situated.
Really?
And stuff. Right. And so I reached out to him to ask him how it was going. And he was learning a lot very quickly about how the Abacos worked.
And how the Bahamian government works, I'm sure.
Well, yeah. Well, he's there at, rock bottom, trying to help dogs and Bahamians and the whole community, of course. But, they're dog lovers, and that's why they're over there. And as he's over there, he's looking around and he's learning, and he's starting to understand a little bit of the situation the Abaconians are in. So when he got back to the States, I reached out to him to see how he was doing and, what was going on over there. And I actually was thinking about him because he knows a lot about diesel engines. And I wanted him to see if he was in the same area as Darren's trucks, so we could see how bad off the trucks were, or at least what we should replace the trucks with. Now, Sean was back in the States at that point, making plans to go back over. And he actually reached out to me because he knew a little bit about the relief effort that we're doing with DL Construction and Darren. And he thought that made a ton of sense. And he called me to ask me how he could be involved. And I think people that have spent time, energy on relief efforts so far for the Bahamas can now understand the second phase of relief, which is the phase that I'm talking about. Actually getting the right Bahamians in the right position to be able to build.
Rebuilding.
Right.
That's phase 2.
Right. And it's weird. It's different because it's there's so many Bahamians over there that you're friendly with and that you like and that you have relationships with. And the one dude that I just hope is okay, and I've known him since I was a kid, is a guy named Ivan. Ivan's probably 75 years old right now. But when we were kids, he was kind of like cool. And he was the tennis pro at the resort there.
Really?
Yeah. And Ivan was always a big smile on his face. He was always, fun to see when you got into town. You'd see Ivan and you'd sit there and have a drink with him. You'd bullshit. And I got to know his kids and his family. I even got to know his girlfriend. And, I've known Ivan since 15. I'm 51 years old now. And Ivan, as great of a person that he is a retired tennis pro. Ivan needs help. He needs somebody like Darren, Lightborn's construction company, to come in and rebuild his home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But providing relief to Ivan, an old tennis pro, Ivan is not in the position to start helping others. He's a tennis pro. Or if you're a bartender, or if you're a dive master or whatever. I'm not saying that you can't help physically, but your company or your purpose of being there was as a tennis pro.
Yeah, or as a bonefish guy.
Right, or as a bartender or whatever. I firmly believe that there's certain Bahamians that are in the position that can use this extra relief or this next phase of relief. And Darren's not the only one. He's just the first one. And as soon as we get Darren up and rolling, I wanted to reach out and find out how the guy that owned the hardware store is doing. Because one thing that the whole Abacos can benefit from is having a hardware store that's up and running. You see what I mean?
Yeah. It's like you said, a snowball.
It's a snowball, and we have to build that snowball and get it rolling. And then once the snowball starts rolling, of course, then the Bahamians can keep it rolling, and it will move forward naturally. Mm-hmm. But it would just break my heart to see the money be restored to the Abacos and other people profiting or getting the work as opposed to Abaconians.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that the people that are best positioned to help the Abacos, to really help the Abacos, not to help the construction, not to help the resorts, not to help all. I'm talking about to help the Abaconians and the Abacos, or Abaconians. They're the ones that can help themselves the best
because they live there. They know what it's supposed to be like, and
they love the Abacos. They rebuild the Abacos for their love of their country, as opposed to making a bunch of money from an insurance company because I'm a construction company that can do construction in the Caribbean.
One day I want to get out there. I really want to get out to Abaco one day.
I'd like to take you. I'd like to take you. I mean, I made a living taking people out to the Abacos for years.
Did you really?
Yeah. I mean, how I got started in the sport fishing world was I could catch blue marlin off of Treasure Key. So people that were fishing in the Treasure Key tournament or tournaments, there was plenty of them there and all around there. We'd be like, oh, we should probably get Jeff on the boat. He fishes here all the time. And I built my snowball there.
Jeff, I was actually thinking as we're sitting here talking, obviously you got tons of stories from the Bahamas and the Abacos over the years. I think that could be a good idea for a new series.
What?
We have like a series where we have all the different Bahamian stories.
Like Bahamian stories, like all the different. Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? That would be kind of a cool idea.
Nicole, did you know Nicole and I got married over there?
Is that where it was?
Yeah.
In Treasure Key?
No. We got married in Hopetown, actually.
Is that on Great Abaco Island?
Hopetown is Hopetown. They call it Elbow Key, but anyway, that's an island right out in front of Marsh Harbor.
Okay.
And when we were kids, first time I took Nicole to the Abacos, I was probably 16. She was 15.
Oh wow, that was a long time ago, man.
Holy
cow.
Yeah, that was like 1984.
I might have even been earlier than that. Because you graduated 86, right?
Right. So I probably took her there when I was a junior. So 84, 85 was probably the first time I took my wife there.
Okay.
And back then, going from Treasure Key to Hopetown was like a full day event. Well, it's about 15 miles away by boat. And if you wanted to leave Treasure Key, go to Hopetown, have dinner, or usually you go for lunch or whatever, you're on Bahamian time. It wasn't like you're going in there and getting lunch in an hour and then coming back. You know what I mean?
It's like a full day event.
Right. You go there, you go to
Chill
Hopetown,
out.
you relax, you freaking have something to eat, maybe a drink or whatever. Next thing you know, it's 5 o'clock and the sun's starting to get a little bit low and you got to make the journey back to Treasure Key. Today, with the fast boats or whatever, it's not near
it's
as
like a few hours.
Not even 45 minutes and you're from Treasure Key to
That quick?
Well, dude, the boats go 40 now, like nothing.
Shoot.
You were lucky to travel at 18 or 20 in the old days. You know what I mean? So you'd roll over there. And so Nicole and I are walking down the main drag in Hopetown, and there's this little white church. And we walk in the church, and in the back of the church is these doors with kind of like French doors where you could see through them.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the ocean and the reef and the beach. If you ever seen the beach in Hopetown, it's just gorgeous. And then it's one of the few places where the ocean rolls in over the reef, and it looks like, like the Hawaii-style waves are pounding in, you know what I mean? And we walk in the little church, and nobody's in there, and we're looking out the back window, and we're looking at the reef and the beach, and Nicole looks at me and says, if we ever get married, I want to get married in this church. True story.
And this was at 16 years old?
She was 15.
Really?
18 years later, we kept going to that church through those 18 years. We finally decided to get married 18 years later. We got married in that church in Hopetown.
Wow.
So anyway, it's dear to my heart. This whole relief effort. And a couple of dudes in our network I'd really like to thank because they've just been doing such an awesome job. Jamie Huff, or Jamie Ho, however you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
He's been over there feeding people. Skipper Gentry. Mm-hmm. Carolina Gentleman. He's been running from Nassau to the Abacos with boatloads of supplies that he's loading up on his sport fishing boat and bringing over there.
His own vessel.
Yeah, and we tried to raise a lot of money for these guys, or especially for Skipper. So he had the dough to bring the relief, And so many other people, that really put in a lot of effort. And it's just awesome to see. And let's just hope that people don't forget about the next phase of relief. Because, if you bring people food and water that they need, they drink the food and the water, and then you have to bring them more.
Yeah.
And then you have to bring them more, and then you have to bring them more. And if you don't take part of the second phase, which is the reconstruction phase, then all you do is build a welfare state. You know what I mean? Because they can't rebuild, they can't start getting their community working
Moving
again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to do more than just give them food and water and a roof over their head. Thank God they've gotten that so far.
Yeah.
But the next phase is where I think is going to be the most important, and I just hope people don't forget.
The thing that I've come to really respect about fishermen, especially during this time, is it's amazing how many anglers are really going out of their way for the Bahamas. And I think that is so great because it's, as fishermen, the Bahamas is a big part, because Bahamas has some of the best fishing in the world. And I love the fact that so many anglers, they seem to remember how good the Bahamas have been to them, and they're willing to give back.
Yeah, and also too, if you fished over there, and it doesn't take long for you to figure out, because, like you're fishing on these big sport fish boats, there's a lot that goes with it. A lot of equipment, a lot of maintenance, parts and pieces that you need. And the further you get into the Bahamas, the harder it is to maintain and deal with these types of issues. So people that fished over there or spend any real time doing tournaments or running boats over there realize how vastly different it is than the United States, because they have to work through it in order to be successful at keeping the boats up and running and fishing there. So they realize the huge disadvantage you have when you are there, and I think that hits them hard. They're like, God, I couldn't imagine being in that position after a devastation like that. And they realize that if they don't reach out their hands and help, nobody else is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that there's been so much support. Is there's enough people that have tried to do things over there that realize how difficult and how different it is than other places in the world. Yeah. And one good thing about having so many people being so close, like Florida is only 180 miles.
Yeah.
Or at least Fort Lauderdale. I think Palm Beach is only like 120 miles from the Abacos. But so a lot of people have been exposed, and they realized, dude, it's right across the creek from us, but it's a totally different world. And I got faith people will get it.
No, I think that they will. I just, it's going to take time. You know, I mean, it's probably going to be at least 2 years, if not more, before they're really kind of back on their feet. You know, I always, you know, every time I go to Bass Pro Shops, there's always an option to donate to the Bahamas. I always make sure I do so to try to hurry up and help them get back on their feet as fast as they can, because the faster they get back on their feet, the quicker I can get over there.
Yeah.
And Abacos is a place that I've actually wanted to go more recently, actually, ever since getting into bone fishing.
You're not the only one, Steve. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of people that just can't wait to get over there for their first time. And there's even more than that can't wait to get over there multiple times, because once you get a little taste and you realize, you know, how cool it can be over there.
They consider that the real Bahamas over in Abacos.
The Bahamas
is it's up for debate.
Yeah, the Bahamas is the Bahamas. But I tell you one thing people don't realize about the Bahamas is, unlike the United States, you know, it's funny. I laugh because people want to talk about all the division that's here and stuff, which is all horseshit. We are not a divided country. We are a fucking solid country, and all that stuff that you hear on the news is a bunch of crap, and it's fake. Because I'll tell you right now, black, white, Hispanic, gay, women, I don't give a shit what you are. Here in the United States, we work together. We are together. We're Americans. Okay? Bahamians are Bahamians. But there's a huge difference between Abaconians and, say, the people that live on the island of Nassau. There's a huge difference between the people on Nassau as opposed to the people that grew up on Freeport. There's a huge difference between the people in Andros than there is from Freeport. And they're all totally different.
See, that's another question I wanted to ask you is, what do you think makes Abaco so unique and different from the rest of the Bahamas? What do you think is the main thing that sets them apart from the rest of the Bahamas?
I think it's hard to hit it right on the head, but there's a huge Christian influence and religious influence all through the Abacos.
Really?
Yeah. And also, the people have always held themselves to higher standards than, say, the more populated areas.
Like so, Bimini and New Providence and all those.
Like, especially Nassau and Freeport. One of the things the Abaconians always would make sure that you knew is that they were not from Freeport or Grand Bahama, or they were not from Nassau
or New Providence.
Right. And they were very proud to be from Abaco. And they knew that there was elements in Nassau and Freeport that they wanted to keep out of the Abacos.
You know, it's funny you say that. When I went to Bimini a few months ago, and, you know, I enjoyed Bimini. You know, it's a nice little island. Everybody was friendly, and it was a lot cleaner as opposed to when I went to Nassau over in New Providence. And I happened to make a comment to this one lady. I said, "This is such a nice, you know, island you guys got here." I said, I enjoy this much more than Nassau. And she goes, "We can't stand Nassau."
And that's what I mean. That's what I mean. People have no clue. You know, because you think about the Bahamas as like it was the United States,
It's all one.
Right, where it's all and it's separated and it's divided. It's divided by the ocean. It's divided by the
Ways of life.
Yeah, the way you think.
Ideologies.
And the people in the Abacos, in my opinion, have kept the bar very high when it comes to ethics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my little sister running around Treasure Key, and she's 11 or 12 years old and running around with her buddies and stuff. We never even thought we had to worry about anything happening to anybody, or anybody getting drugs, or anybody swindling them, or
worse.
Nothing. You didn't even worry about it. You could leave your doors open and stuff.
Really?
It's not that way today. At least
not.
Not like it was.
Yeah.
But it's still a hell of a lot better than Nassau or Grand Bahama. And there's a lot to be said for that. You're bringing families. Americans are bringing their families over to spend time, their spare time, the most valuable time that they have in their life, and they choose to go to the Bahamas with that time. And then when you're in the Abacos, you get it back. You know what I mean? It's not like going to a casino, or it's not like going to Paradise Island where it's like a resort and you expect, to be treated like
royalty.
Yeah, or what, it's like a totally different mindset. And the Abaconians know it, and they've always, had a lot of pride, And that's what I mean. It's really important to let the Abaconians start helping Abaconians before
the insurance companies get involved.
Well, so many people are going to come in. They're going to come in. It's all about the money.
Yeah.
And, and to an extent they have to come in.
I'm sure they're going to have to help in some capacity.
Yeah, to an extent they're going to have to come in. But it's it's important to get these companies off the sidelines and into the ball game. You know what I mean?
One day, Jeff, maybe we'll go over there, you and I, when they rebuild. I think we should do that.
Well, I think we should go over there and help them rebuild.
I'm down for that, too.
Well, there's going to be a time for that. There's going to be a time for that. I mean, it's way early now. They're going to need the infrastructure. They're going to need things like hardware stores. They're going to need things like trucks. And when the right people get the right stuff, then the average everyday American could go over there for a week. And who knows what the project may be. Maybe it's putting together some docks, Maybe it's whatever, clearing out a house or whatever. And there'll be a time. There'll be a time where, or maybe it's just you save up your dough, and when you get it all saved up, you decide you're going to take your dough and you're going to go to that Bonefish Lodge over there on the Abaco Island and spend your dough.
Abaco Lodge.
Right.
Yeah, that's the goal one day.
If you simply do that, you can help, and so can every other American.
Puts money into their economy.
Right. And hopefully guys like Darren Lightbourne will get their construction companies up and get these places like those lodges, other people's homes, resorts, marinas, up and going, so it's a beautiful place, and they can actually handle, the tourism again. And it'll be different for a while. The tourism.
At least 2 years. At least 2-3 years.
Probably a lot longer than that.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't take me that long to go, though.
Hell, it took them a decade to get the fucking roads paved from Treasure Key to the airport. Once they started, now it's just to pave one road. Now, granted, that was 20 years ago, but heck, But I'm just saying that's what goes on in the Bahamas. So they got to pave the roads. They got to put in new electric. They got to do all this crowd kind of stuff. And it's not like you're going to get the best construction company in the world to come in and be the most efficient in the world. It's
let me tell you.
It's a good thing we don't have to deal with that.
No, but let me tell you something that I've come to really, I laugh about it, but I've come to respect it about the Bahamas is when you go over there, and I said this to my buddy Gabriel when we went to Bimini back in May. I said, because he had never been to the Bahamas, and I just said, listen, the thing you need to understand is when you come here to slow down. I said, you're not going to get what you want necessarily the second you want it. And, it could be a blessing and a curse, but over the years, I've come to look at it as more of a blessing because I'm so used to moving like a freaking 70 miles per hour constantly. And, when I go over there, I'm able to really just kind of slow down. And I mean, just going over there for 2-3 days feels like you're over there for a week, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And
I tell you, if you want to be, if you want the drinks fast and you want to be waited on hand and foot, go to Nassau, go to Paradise Island.
Yep.
And you get treated that way.
Yep.
But that whole thing that you're talking about, it puts you in a different state of mind. Did I ever tell you the story about Doc Holliday?
No.
Do you know who Doc Holliday is?
I didn't even know if Doc Holliday was a person or a place.
Well, I mean the modern day Doc Holliday. He's actually a head football coach for Marshall University right now.
Okay.
All right. So I get to know Doc from my St. Thomas days. All right. Okay. And Doc was coaching at West Virginia Mountaineers, University of West Virginia at the time.
Okay.
And they're kind of recruiting me a little bit. I mean, not like head over heels. I'm not exactly what you'd call a 5-star recruit. But they're recruiting me out of St. Thomas Aquinas. And I get kind of friendly with Doc. And I actually make a commitment to go to the University of West Virginia. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And later on, University of Connecticut said I could come there. And my father thought that academically that if I could get into Connecticut that I should go there.
Well, I mean, it's closer to home, New England,
No, it's not. and
you're from Boston, man. Come on.
Dude, that's not closer to home. That friggin' everything about New England was not exactly for me. But that's neither here or there. Doc, I stayed friends with even though I went to University of Connecticut.
Okay.
So a couple of years, maybe 4 or 5 years after I met Doc, I see him here in Fort Lauderdale. And I'm talking to him, and I'm just, kind of shooting the shit with him. And he's not, like, overly friendly. He looks a little bit kind of, like, out of sorts. And I said, Doc, you all right, dog? I said, you're usually a lot more talkative and that kind of thing. And he's like, Jeff, he says, I got to pass the stress test that the NCAA is putting on the coaches. And I got to take it in a couple months. He goes, I've already failed it twice. He goes, if I don't pass the stress test, he says, I'm not sure what I'm going to, if I'm going to be here next year recruiting or what. And I was like, really? So, I don't know, the next night at the dinner table, I'm sitting down with the family, and I say to my dad, hey, you remember that guy, Doc Holliday, the guy from West Virginia? He's like, yeah, of course. How's Doc doing? Blah, blah, blah. I says, I don't know. He's got to pass the stress test that the NCAA puts on the coaches. And he hasn't been able to pass it. He's a little nervous, and he doesn't know if he's going to be coaching anymore. So my dad calls up Doc on the phone, and Doc explains the situation to him. And my old man says, hey, what might be a good idea for you is we're going to our house in Treasure Key this weekend. He says, why don't you pile in the plane with the family? He says, and come hang out with us. And stay there as long as you want. And just kind of decompress and just enjoy yourself at our place in the Bahamas. And then maybe when you come back, you take the test and it might do something for you. He says, my old man explained that, he comes back from the Bahamas and feels like $1 million, and he's all rejuvenated for work again. So this guy Doc goes over there, and he hangs for like 10 days. And my parents go back, and I'm hanging with Doc. And we're not doing much. We're hanging around the marina, fishing off the dock, fiddling with the boats, just kind of doing a whole lot of nothing for like 10 days. Doc comes home and takes that stress test and passes with flying colors.
That is freaking awesome.
To this day, Doc and my family are still friends.
How old is he now?
He's old.
I mean, he's got to be in his 80s probably now, right?
No. Doc was young when I knew him. But figure Doc is probably 65 years old now.
He's not that old.
Not crazy old, but he's old. He's old compared to when I remember him. But check him out next time Marshall's on TV. The head coach, Doc Holliday. And they love saying his name. Everybody loves saying Doc Holliday. What if you had a name like Doc Holliday?
What was his real name?
Doc Holliday.
What was Doc short for?
I don't know. All I know is his name's Doc Holliday. And everybody loves saying it.
I mean, dude, how can you not want to say it?
Right.
Doc Holliday.
Doc Holliday. Anyway.
They should make that a national holiday.
Yeah. Well, dude, we'll talk about more Bahama stories in the future.
Yeah, this is going to be like kind of our intro to the Bahamian story show, the series that we're going to do.
Well, what we'll do is we'll do more stories on the Bahamas, and that'll give me a good reason to update the relief effort.
Yeah, so people can kind of know how it's going and what they can do to help, how they can contribute.
Right, exactly. We get the DL Construction as a household name in the Lunker Dog Studios.
Yeah, get them back up and running.
I think
we should do a podcast. You know what we should do? We should go to Abacos and do a podcast with Darren.
Dude,
how sweet would that be?
It wouldn't be as good as you think.
No.
Have you ever had to have a conversation with like a hardcore Abaconian?
Not a Abaconian, but I've had conversation with Bahamian.
How much of it did you actually get when they start really talking fast and everything?
I mean, I was able to keep up, but again, Abaconians are different. So.
All I'm saying is I grew up with a whole bunch of kids, from the Abacos. And one-on-one, I can get about 95%. They got weird accents. They use words a little bit differently. Not quite, like a roster or something, but like an Abaconian. And when you get 4 or 5 of them together and they start carrying on, you're lucky to get 50% of it. I'm not kidding you. If anybody out there has been in the position that I'm talking about, Jeff@lunkerdog.com. Send me an email. Let me know if that's ever happened to you, because I consider myself pretty fluent as far as being able to understand everything that they say. And I'm telling you, there's times when I can only get like 50%. So having them on the podcast, it'd be cool, but
we'd only be able to get a certain amount. Well, me at least.
Most. It's hard. It ain't easy.
You just got to learn it. It's like anything else.
But it's a little different. It's not like there's a freaking grammar book that teaches you how to speak Abaconian.
They don't got like the Abaconian dictionary that you can buy?
No. Well, they might, but I'm just saying it's not,
Oh, man.
For a podcast, I don't know how many people would actually get it. But
that's true.
Anyway, let's wrap this one up.
Let's do it.
That's Steven Busacca. I'm Captain Jeff. Thanks for tuning into the Real Guy Podcast. We look forward to next episode.
Yeah.
And
it's going to be a launch of a new series.
That's right. And
run that dog.
Yeah, run that dog.